Hello and welcome to another video in Foundations of Maternal and Newborn Health. In today's video we're going to be talking about clotting. And so clotting is how your body stops itself from bleeding. So when you get a cut or an injury and you're bleeding, clotting is how your body stops the blood from continuing. And so clotting is how your body stops itself from continuing to bleed. And so this is an important idea, and this is known as hemostasis. So hemostasis is basically clotting. They basically mean the same thing. It's the mechanism of stopping bleeding. So when your body gets a big cut or a little cut, doesn't really matter. The mechanism to stop that bleeding is usually very similar. And the main way it does this is by just plugging the hole. So it's not overly complicated, it's not overly sophisticated. Your body just tries to plug the hole from allowing more blood to be lost. So here we have a diagram of a blood vessel, and so you can imagine blood traveling from kind of left to right, and this cutout here is kind of like a window looking into the blood vessel. And so in yellow here we have a cut, or we have an injury to the blood vessel, and so we may have blood actually escaping the blood vessel. And so your body needs to stop this bleeding from happening. Okay, so just to go back a step, we'll go over kind of what's inside your blood. So you might have some red blood cells floating around. You might have some even white blood cells floating around that we've talked about in the immunology section. You would also have a bunch of different proteins that are floating around your blood that are just secreted out into your blood. And you may have other types of cells as well. So you would have other kind of small cells, and we'll talk about these in a second. They're also important. But your blood is full of a bunch of different types of things. So there's lots of different things in your blood, as we've drawn in here. And so when your body gets a cut, it actually tries to form a clot. So we'll draw it here in blue, but basically it's plugging the hole with a bunch of goop, basically. You can think of it as like a weave of proteins and cells that come in and plug the hole. So this would be in blue here, this would be a clot. Okay, so there's lots of components to a clot. So the first is clotting factors. And so factors is just a fancy word of saying proteins, so clotting proteins, really. So again, these are just going to be floating around the body, so they'll actually come over to the cut and they'll try to plug the hole. But the clot also has a bunch of cells in it as well, so these green cells will actually come in and embed themselves in the clot as well as it's being built up. So these green cells here will come over as well. And these are known as platelets. And so these platelets actually help activate the clotting factors. and they embed themselves in the clot to help build up that clot. And then last but not least are red blood cells. So red blood cells will actually also kind of inadvertently, kind of by accident, get caught up into the clot. But it's not a bad thing because they take up a bunch of room. So if you have a big cut, the red blood cells help plug the hole by taking up room in the clot as well. So you get kind of a gel of red blood cells, of platelets, and of clotting factors that all come in to plug this hole. So the red blood cells kind of just get caught up in it as well as they're floating by. So you'll also see red blood cells, or RBCs. And all of this leads to hemostasis, leads to no longer bleeding from this wound. And so over time, your body will actually regrow this blood vessel. So this blood vessel will start growing in, and then the clot will start to disintegrate, will start to break down, but the blood vessel will build across this cut. And so over time, it'll be as if the blood vessel was never injured at all. The cut will be gone and the clot will be gone as well. And that's how your body maintains hemostasis, or stops itself from bleeding. And so this is really important for a lot of things. I mean, firstly, you always get a couple of small cuts all the time. You might have small injuries to blood vessels that you don't even know about that are happening all the time inside your body. But you can also get disease. So if you have issues with your clotting factors or with your platelets, these can lead to diseases. And we'll talk about some of these in a later video. But when we talk about postpartum hemorrhage or DIC or HELLP syndrome, issues with these clotting factors or platelets can lead to a prevention of hemostasis. So you just keep bleeding and bleeding and bleeding, and then you never stop bleeding because you're either missing some of these or there's something wrong with them. So it's important to kind of know just the basics of clotting and how your body stops yourself from bleeding, because we'll talk about some of these diseases in a later video.